you smell the big red machine is here? Woo! Get stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun.
From the past.
I am a real American.
To the present. And the future.
I send it you to deletion!
You are listening to Penn State's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus, Ryan Simpson, and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the second to last episode of Marking Out of this semester. I'm your host, Jason Marcus, alongside me, Matt Freiler and Ryan Simpson. Matt, how's it going, man?
Doing good, Jason. We got 2 shows left in the semester, and we're past Survivor Series now, so I guess that means we're officially on the road to WrestleMania.
Officially? I guess so. Ryan, how are you?
A little bit on the weather here, Jason, getting back in the swing of things from Thanksgiving break, but we got some interesting independent news to cover because WWE has been doing nothing.
Yeah, and that's pretty much going to be the theme of this. So if you guys are interested in independent wrestling, this is going to be the podcast for you because there's far more going on outside the WWE than there is inside of the WWE right now. I guess we'll devote a couple minutes to just talking about Survivor Series and what's going on in the main roster, albeit it's not much. So, Matt, I'll talk to you about this one. What has been going on? Tell me a little bit about Survivor Series, what you thought of it, and then also the state of the main roster right now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you want to call Survivor Series a dud. I mean,
I'd call it a dud.
It had some all right matches. I mean, I think the match, it's like the Survivor Series traditional match itself, obviously was terrible. Raw winning 6-0, probably not a good look.
Hey,
6-1.
6-1.
6-1.
Yeah, so if we count the pre-show, 6-1, which obviously the New Day was.
Why didn't they count that?
I don't know. I guess the pre-show.
Ryan, because I thought I read something too, but Ryan,
Yeah.
give me.
The one source dirt sheet that I read said that somebody missed a cue, and it was supposed to be a 7-0 complete sweep.
Yeah.
But somebody missed their cue, didn't get in time to break up the pin, so they just ignored it from the show and said, oh, it was 6-0.
So who was supposed to win it for Raw? Because I looked at the Raw side, and there's nobody there that's getting pushed.
Hey, Bobby Roode and Chad Gable should have made that 7-0.
What happened this week on Monday Night Raw, Matt?
All right, let's not talk about it.
Yeah, there's your push
what
for
did
you.
happen?
Still a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah. Do you want to just? It was so bad. The main roster, Survivor.
Somebody peed themselves.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I think we should, honestly.
It
yeah.
wasn't even good. Like it was.
Let's talk. Let's talk about it because let's talk about the fact that is what someone thought was the best idea for this product. I hate it so much, guys. Like I can't even put into words how stupid it is. Like
If I
there's a
could
lot of
buy,
stupid stuff that happens in
Yeah.
wrestling. This is up there.
If I could buy a shirt, the only way that the WWE could save this for me is if I could buy a shirt with Drake Maverick's face on it that said Pisser 316 or something. That's the only way that this. But otherwise, it was a ridiculous match. It
Yeah.
wasn't good. If we're talking about the tag team match now, which was the SmackDown tag titles, is when this happened. Tag champs versus tag champs, I guess you could call it, and it was just not a good match across the board. I mean, the women did some okay things, I guess you could say. I mean, Seth and Shinsuke didn't go as I expected. I mean, I think we all picked Shinsuke, didn't we? Or just
No, I picked Rollins.
You picked Rollins. We both. You did? No, you did. We have to go. So if I was the only one to pick Shinsuke, I'm surprised because I really did think that they would give him a win because Ambrose was going to interfere.
Well, yeah, I said if Ambrose interferes, it's Nakamura, but if Ambrose doesn't interfere, then it's going to be Rollins.
And I said I've learned from the past booking enough to know that if they're going to push either Seth Rollins or Shinsuke Nakamura, I know who I'm giving it to. And I was right. So, no, Shinsuke is a joke, unfortunately. He might need to go to a promotion that we'll talk about later in this podcast if they let him.
Yeah, men's side, I mean, are we saying that Shinsuke Rollins was the match of the night, or are we going to give it to the Cruiserweight title? Because it might have been. I mean,
I think Brock Bryan was still pretty good, but...
See, I have a different opinion
Brock Bryan was interesting for what it was. I was not going to be a fan of it one way or the other. I still think the match of the night was Charlotte and Ronda.
That's true.
Because when Charlotte pulls out that kendo stick and starts beating the ever-living crap out of Ronda, I popped.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, like, I figured Becky would be the one to do this. But now having Charlotte going back to heel Charlotte and just beating Ronda to a bloody pulp, I mean, her mouth got busted up early.
Yeah.
And then she got a kendo stick to the ear, which I can only imagine how bad that hurt.
Yeah.
And then she's just breaking kendo sticks over her. I think overall shock factor, I was still intrigued by that than, say, anything else on the card because I figured it would be just nice, nice, clean, squeaky win for one of them, and we would go on from there.
Right.
But moving forward, now we don't know where we're going to go because now we have Charlotte and Becky both being heels on SmackDown.
Yeah, and I think that was the best part of the show. Certainly unexpected.
I would agree. I think that was the match of the night. On the men's side, I have some different thoughts about Brock and Bryan. I guess for the casual wrestling fan who tunes in and sees that match, I guess you're pretty excited. But who do I root for?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's what I was saying on the podcast a couple weeks ago. Is like, why would you turn Bryan there and then feed him to the other biggest heel? And
am I supposed to hate Daniel Bryan? Because
Yeah.
I didn't.
yeah, exactly. I don't.
I was rooting for him to the moon. Like I don't hate Daniel.
The
Bryan.
whole
So
timing of it was just super weird.
you're confusing me as a wrestling fan, and this is why the universe will root for the heels and cheer the heels and boo the faces because this kind of crap happens.
Yeah. So Survivor Series in a nutshell was, I would say, the definition of average. There was some good stuff, but there was also a lot of really bad stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing.
We expected this though, didn't we? We said Survivor Series
Oh,
was
yeah.
the weakest of the big four usually.
But I think this was even weaker than in most years
Yeah,
past.
I would
This has
agree.
been one of the worst Survivor Series in recent memory. But we also expected that coming in. But enough about Survivor Series here. I want to talk about NXT because it doesn't get enough love on our show, mostly just because there's so much other stuff going on. But NXT, for my money, is the best professional wrestling product on the planet today.
Completely agree.
I think from a storytelling perspective, from an in-ring perspective, from a promo perspective, they are firing on every cylinder, and it feels like everybody else is only halfway there. And I loved it. Let's start with the impromptu match between Matt Riddle and Cassius Ohno. Matt Riddle makes his big takeover debut. He got the win on NXT television the week before over a jobber. But here he takes on Cassius Ohno. Ryan, what were your thoughts?
This was my first time seeing Matt Riddle in a ring.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not a huge NXT TV guy. If I know some big match is happening, I will watch it. But leading up to this, I did not watch any of Matt Riddle's stuff. So my first impression of him was him on the pre-show panel. Cassius Ohno comes out, starts talking trash. Usual, hey, I'm going to get you back. Ha, 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 ha. And then Riddle comes out in the ring. He gives a great line about, hey, we have one ring, 2 rings. And I was like, all right, I like this guy. And then Ohno comes out, and we have an impromptu match. Riddle just knees his head straight off his body, which I have a hot take coming later in the show, but that knee is incredible.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good finisher. I'm very glad that the UFC background that he has is playing into his character. But I thought it was a good little exposure point for the casual NXT fans
Yeah.
who maybe not know who Matt Riddle is at this point.
Yeah, I think it was definitely the right call because they knew they weren't going to have too much time for him to have a full match. I think they're still going to have the full match later on NXT television in the coming weeks. But it was a good introduction to the NXT universe about who Matt Riddle was. Matt, what was your take on this?
Well, you guys called it. I thought this was scrapped. I thought they got rid of this, but they did give it some time. I mean, I guess you have to. When you have a guy like Matt Riddle who's been such a high-profile signing and you have a takeover pay-per-view, you kind of got to put him on. So with Matt Riddle, I mean, I've always been a fan. His charisma combined with his in-ring ability, he's going to get a very big push in NXT, and I almost hope that he sticks around for a while.
I agree. I think he will too because I think people realize that like the main roster is not what it's cracked up to be. You'd much rather just stay in NXT and be the top guy there than
Is
just
the Matt Riddle target audience really the main roster anyway? I
No.
think it's more of NXT.
I actually think so. Matt Riddle has so much potential to be a massive superstar, but I also feel like he's got a lot of potential to just be another dud on the main roster if people don't
Right.
understand him. He's a very niche audience, and if you're like he's very popular with younger people, but I think with older people, they're gonna be like, who is this Joker? Get him
Kids,
off my.
too, probably might not understand.
which is exactly what I continue to say about Velveteen Dream. I am so worried that if he gets called up, because the NXT audience is not the main roster audience, that he will get lost in the shuffle. And I think you guys have a great point of him being, Riddle being a character like that too. Because through Vince McMahon's lens, what is Matt Riddle? Another reason to sell merch that says bro on it. He is another Zack Ryder to Vince McMahon.
Exactly.
And that's how he's going to be treated. So yes, I agree. If he's in NXT, stay there for like 2-3 years, man. Break Johnny Gargano's record of having however many takeover matches. Stay down there and just keep doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Zack Ryder comparison is spot on here. But moving on from War Games, unless you have
I was just going to say one more thing. I think Matt Riddle could really be like the poster boy of making NXT something more than just a developmental brand that it is now.
I think it's past that.
Well, you're right. It is in our eyes, but WWE kind of still treats it that way. So, I mean, you're getting an hour on Wednesdays. You get these great TakeOver pay-per-views, but I'm talking about really a third brand that really gets as much time to shine as the main two. And then to the point where are we really even calling it a main roster if all of our talent's at NXT, especially with the future and what we'll get into of what's going on in the indies. Are these guys wanting to go to NXT? Is Triple H doing a good enough job to recruit them, or are they going to start their own promotions? We'll get into.
Little teaser there, but let's keep moving forward with NXT TakeOver War Games. After the Matt Riddle squash of Cassius Ohno, we had the NXT Women's Championship match between the champion Shayna Baszler defending the title against the former champion Kairi Sane in a 2 out of 3 falls match here. Shayna Baszler gets a quick score of the first fall after Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir interfere to push Kairi Sane off the top rope. Shayna Baszler locks her in with a coquina clutch. That's Samoa Joe's finisher, but same move, just different name. Gets the first fall. Overall, Shayna Baszler retains the title here. A lot of interference for the other two members of the Four Horsewomen, as well as Io Shirai and Dakota Kai. So what did you think of this match, Ryan?
Well, the majority of the time takeovers happen, I hate to say this, but the women's matches are usually my pee break matches.
Yeah, I agree.
Just because I'm not as involved in the characters or the storylines. But that being said, for these two women, the amount of history they have already had, I made sure I sat down and watched the match because there were just too many elements within the match that I didn't want to miss. There are too many variables that could have changed, so I didn't want to miss it. And boy, was I glad that I sat down and watched it. The match felt like it flew by for being 2 out of 3 falls. Usually 2 out of 3 falls matches draw on a little bit longer.
I agree.
You feel like you're, okay, like speed it up here. This one was soaring. I mean, that first tap out happened, and I'm like, oh, geez, like, we're already at 1-0 here. And then 3, 4, 5 minutes later, we get the other one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, like, we're cruising along here. And then we had this great spot on the apron, the spike DDT.
I thought you broke her neck.
I was scared for my life and for her life, for that matter. But women did a fantastic job. I think this is one of the best women's matches since probably it was Sasha and Bayley down in NXT.
Ooh, I don't know if I put it up there, but it's definitely good.
I think in terms of storyline to this point, like you start to get the feeling that the rivalry's getting a little bit stale, but I think this was possibly like a good closing match for the entire feud in NXT. Oh,
so I think this is going on a lot farther, mostly just because of the interference by the Horsewomen and Io Shirai and Kai. I like the finish of the full actual finish of the match though, because it still protected both women, where it looked like Sane was going to pick up the third fall and then she just rolled her up and that was it. And Baszler retains the title here, but at the same time, there looks like they're going to continue to push the 3 vs 3 program. So
yeah, and I thought Kairi Sane. I think me and you both picked her. I know you picked Shayna Baszler. Yeah. You got a lot of these right. I think I got all of them wrong, to be honest. When we're running through these, I'll make sure, but I honestly think that's why I love NXT.
Yeah.
I honestly got all of these wrong, and this was the start of it.
Happier.
Yeah.
Where I was kind of shocked because, well, they did the right thing to keep Shayna Baszler around and establish her in NXT with Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir. The thing is, I thought they were going to put it on Kairi Sane because I thought they were going to try to push these ladies
to the main roster,
which I'm glad they're not. Establish them in NXT, let them run through everybody, be this dominant faction. And I like this 3 vs 3 thing. I like the outcome. Kairi Sane could be a real star.
Yeah, I agree. I think that One knock that we've had on WWE for a long time has just been their almost inability to tell long-term stories, and I think this slow burn that they're telling with this whole rise of the 4 MMA horsewomen is really good. So I'm excited to see where that goes from here. Also, Kairi Sane was diagnosed with a hand, foot, and mouth disease.
It's going around.
I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't really know what that means, but I can't imagine that it's good.
Could be mild, could be more serious.
Yeah, there were a couple cases at the end of the baseball season where Noah Syndergaard of the Mets got it, and this disease is very, very weird because it's usually only found in babies because they have their hands and feet all over the place, like putting their hands in their mouths and everything.
Yeah.
But there have been these cases of it popping up with like other athletes. So Kairi Sane shouldn't be out too long. This shouldn't really hold any major plans up. But
Well,
it's just
the interesting part about it is that's contagious.
yes, and that's the only thing. It's the mild case versus how severe it is to see how much it will affect the move going forward.
I think if anything, if they need to write her off television for a while, it's just as simple as the horsewoman beating her up and then until she's healthy, and then she'll make her big return.
Maybe that's why Styles dropped the belt. Hand, foot, and mouth.
Hand,
disease.
foot, mouth disease.
Hot takes here. Next match we had on the NXT Takeover card was my personal favorite of the night. And it was tough. There was a lot of good matches on, but I love these two guys individually. So I'm a big fan of Aleister Black and Johnny Gargano. This was a great match. In the end, Aleister Black hits not one but 2 Black Mass kicks on Johnny Gargano and gets the win here. So, Matt, what did you think about this one?
2 Black Mass is brutal. I mean, this is one of the. You guys were like getting on me because you were like, oh, it's not a super kick. I think it is.
It's not a super kick.
I don't think it's a super.
This is in the super kick family of moves.
It's in the family. It's not a super.
Not every kick
it
is a
might
It's
be
like
super.
that first cousin removed.
It might be one of the most brutal forms of a super
I
kick.
agree, and Simpson had a take on
I
that
love
as
it.
well.
Yeah, hot take by me, which I foreshadowed earlier. I think the Black Mass is the most devastating kick finisher in WWE history.
More than Sweet Chin Music?
More than Sweet Chin Music.
More than the Brogue kick?
More than the Brogue kick.
Claymore right
The Claymore, and even Finn's coup de grace, the double stomp, really hits me. But I love Black Mass so much because it is so poetic.
Mhm.
It looks so clean.
And
Like, you can only watch a super kick so many times.
yeah,
The fact that he can stand there, hold the guy's face up, and in this case said, I absolve you of your sins, and then just turns around and kicks his head in the next week. So good.
the thing I like most about Black Mass is I look for the sound it makes, right? Because there's this thing in professional wrestlers where you're taught a lot that sound comes from like them slapping on their thigh. But he doesn't do that. Like, if you watch him, that is just legitimate. The sound it makes, just the pure speed and velocity that he hits that kick with, like, it is intense, and I love every minute of it. So, it was a great match for these guys. Again, Black got the win here. Like I said, Gargano still looks good even in losses. So, this was the right call.
Also, my match of the night, even though this next match was fantastic, I still had Aleister over Gargano.
You could go either way. I mean, I think you say that though because Black and Gargano went first. I think if this order was reversed, you might have a
Maybe.
different opinion.
I love this match,
Yeah.
Yeah. So up next, we had the NXT Championship match. It was the champion Tommaso Ciampa defending against the number 1 contender, the Velveteen Dream, in a 5-star classic. Well, 4 3/4 according to Dave Meltzer. But Velveteen Dream and Ciampa just absolutely tore it up. Velveteen Dream comes out for the second time dressed as Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
So
But it's a gag. Like, can we talk about that?
go for it, yeah.
He's making fun of Hulk Hogan, and like that's what it is.
Mhm.
Well, he did a lot of 80s spots here. He did the Macho Man stuff. He did the Bret Hart stuff. He
Yeah.
did Ric Flair. So he was just throwing the wall at these 80s and 90s references.
Which is smart. Because everybody loves nostalgia.
Yeah.
And he knows how to get people to pop for him. So he'll come out looking like Hulk Hogan.
Mm.
And he'll rip the shirt off. And he'll do the hand gestures. And I was in my basement loving every second of it.
He even hit a couple leg drops.
Yeah. He teased it at one point, and then Ciampa rolled out of the ring. And I was like, oh, no, he's hitting this thing. This is going to be so funny. So then he hits him with the big boot, hits the leg drop, and I was freaking out in my basement because Velveteen, once again, is only 23 years old, and he is one of the smartest guys in NXT.
I agree. Both of these guys have a great future. In the end, Ciampa retains the title here after he hits a Hangman DDT onto the partition between the two rings here. So a great match between the two. But Matt, what was your favorite part?
I just continue to be mesmerized with how good of a heel Ciampa is. I mean,
he's
really,
on another level of heel.
Really. I mean, I genuinely hate the guy. And like when I picked Velveteen Dream to win this match, and I was wrong. And I wanted. I mean, he even looked good in the loss. But I continue to be so impressed with Ciampa. Keep him in NXT. He doesn't really fit on the main roster at this point, I don't think.
Ciampa?
Yeah.
No, I don't either.
I think, like you said, you're gonna have more matches with him and Gargano or Aleister Black. Could go either way, triple threat possibly at the next takeover. But I continue to be interested too with what's next for Velveteen Dream.
I agree. I think Velveteen Dream is like really almost in a not a crisis, but what I don't think he's ready for the main roster, and by that I don't mean he's not talented enough or that he couldn't get over. More of this is I don't think the main roster is ready for him. I just don't think the main roster has any idea what to do with him.
No, it's not time for that.
But at the same time, what does he have left to do in NXT?
Exactly. That's the crossroads that he's at right now. I don't know if he'll be received as well on the main roster, and in NXT right now he doesn't really have like a feud. I mean, there's things that you can explore, but they involve maybe a heel turn, but I don't know. He would best be suited maybe in a feud with like a Matt Riddle or something, because right now I don't know where else you go with him.
Yeah, I think either Riddle or Gargano. If you put Black and Ciampa up in a program together, and they just switch partners, and then you have Gargano and Dream, that could work. But I don't know, Ryan, what do you got?
I think the only thing left for Velveteen to do is win a belt, and it's obviously not going to be the NXT title.
Yeah.
So I think you have him and Ricochet start a program because, in my opinion, Ricochet's not going anywhere in NXT anytime soon either.
No.
So you have those two start a program. Maybe have Velveteen get like some kind of cheap roll up, hold the tights on Ricochet, and then obviously we won't have another takeover like that happens at night WrestleMania weekend, and then we won't have another takeover until SummerSlam.
Yeah.
So you have Velveteen just prance around with that belt. I'm better than Ricochet. I'm better than Ricochet. And then you have him legitimately beat Ricochet.
Yeah.
And then that can carry on the title for a little bit longer. But I think the only thing left for him to do, being so young, is win a belt.
Yeah, he's got to get something, but it's a tough situation for him right now. But
Agreed.
This leads us to our main event of TakeOver War Games, and it was the aforementioned War Games match. On one side, we had the team of Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong, collectively known as the Undisputed Era, versus the team of War Raiders, Ricochet, and Pete Dunne. And man, was this lived up to the hype. This was absolutely incredible. Had everything you could want as a wrestling fan. High spots, weapon breaks. I loved this match. Matt, what did you think?
It's another one I got wrong, and so I was right. I got every match on this card wrong, all of them, except Matt Riddle. Which
That's it. You're off the show. I'm just kidding.
That's like the first time I've never even got one right. But I was shocked by this one. I mean, I think we all picked Undisputed.
Everyone picked Undisputed Era.
Yeah, I mean, what are they teasing here? Like, is this? I mean, they're not supposed to lose. I mean, they're a team. Like, they have chemistry. Like,
I don't think this hurts Undisputed Era though.
I don't think it hurts them. But is this? Are we supposed to think something's wrong? Like,
no, I just think it's supposed to just make the other guys look a lot stronger
individually. So like, obviously, I think if you had to pick a star, it was Ricochet.
Yeah. Oh man, that double moonsault. Oh, that.
He almost missed even.
Yeah.
He over-rotated.
So
that was crazy.
If what you're saying is right, Jason, and the point of this match was to push these guys individually, then Ricochet is really the one who benefits the most.
I agree. But I think you can look at all the people individually on that on the winning side and know what they have in store. Ricochet is already the NXT North American champion. He's arguably the most popular superstar on NXT right now. Pete Dunne's the United Kingdom champion. They're trying to grow that brand. They need him to be the face of that. And then you have Hanson and Rowe, the War Raiders, who are next in line for the NXT tag titles. You imagine they're going to challenge Undisputed Era, take over Royal Rumble. So it makes a lot of sense. I just didn't see it coming in hindsight.
You need to go 47 minutes, though.
I think it deserved it.
I think it could have gone a little bit shorter, but I disagree on who the MVPs of the match were.
Okay.
I think the MVPs were War Raiders.
Really? Because
if you look back at the first War Games match that they had, Lars Sullivan was easily the star of that match.
Lars Sullivan wasn't it? Was he?
Yeah.
It was Undisputed Era versus Authors of Pain and Roderick Strong, and
I thought Lars was in there.
Lars was in there.
Yeah.
He was one of the oddball characters, but he showed out. And so then I watched it this year, and I was like, oh, okay, like War Raiders are big, strong dudes, but they're going to have to keep up with Undisputed Era and stuff like that. We'll fact check it here. But I think War Raiders showing how athletic they are as big men. I mean, I think it was Hanson at one point just did like a backspring elbow drop off the rope.
I mean,
was like, you shouldn't be able to move like that if you're that big. But I think the reason I was so impressed is because of the level of talent in the ring along with the War Raiders. I mean, you're talking about Ricochet, who can probably wrestle until the cows come home every single week. And then you have Pete Dunne, who, I mean, is just so young and so hard-hitting. And then you have the veterans of Undisputed Era. I think War Raiders I'm now a fan of War Raiders.
Yeah.
I did not know much about them before that match, but now I am a fan of them.
Before we go into our first break here, that was TakeOver War Games. Tonight on NXT television, we have the main event match between Lars Sullivan, who is soon to be a main roster superstar, against Keith Lee. So a battle of two athletic big men. Should be a good one tonight on NXT. But we're going to take our first break here. When we come back, we'll talk about all the major news in the independent scene. You're listening to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now, back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. Alongside me, Ryan Simpson and Matthew Freiler. And Matt Freiler is very passionate about a couple things, and one of those things is his professional wrestling. And man, did Monday Night Raw not deliver. Matt, give us your thoughts about this latest episode of Monday Night Raw.
And I just got more pissed off because I heard Samoa Joe's music. And you know what the worst thing to happen at Survivor Series was?
That's true.
The first one eliminated.
In like 3 seconds.
What was that? Samoa Joe gets dropped and taken out of this match when he's supposed to basically be the MVP, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At least for SmackDown.
He was supposed to be that force on SmackDown that gave him a fighting shot, and then he was the first one out in 3 seconds. Like, how are we supposed to take them seriously after that?
That was so bad. And he didn't even care. He just left.
I mean, he didn't want to be part of the match
Yeah,
either.
exactly. Yeah, that could have been it. But transitioning into Raw, get Nia Jax off my television. Get her out.
Amen.
I'm done. Like, I'm so done. That promo was all-time low, terrible. I mean, it was bad.
I mean, I don't think Ronda was good either.
No, the whole show was just atrocious from top to bottom.
Yeah.
I'm being forced to like Baron Corbin. We're all trying, like, this is worse than, like, them forcing Jinder on me. Like,
Ooh, I don't know about that. That's a low.
No, I mean, yeah, Jinder
that
had
was
the
a
title.
low.
But this is bad because, like, even the end of Survivor Series promoted Baron Corbin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was supposed to be like, wow, next we have Baron Corbin and Braun Strowman at TLC. And now Braun shatters his elbow for, like, the second time in a year, like the same injury, different elbow.
Yep.
Which, if you looked at the pictures that they released today, that's not a work. That's a smashed elbow.
Yeah.
And I don't think, like, we could talk about it a little bit too, but I don't think Braun really cares that he gets hurt. I think he's just this big tough guy who's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna get hurt anyway. Like,
I mean, I think Braun is
helps my character.
I think Braun is just secure in the fact that he's like 7 feet tall and 300 pounds, and Vince is gonna love him no matter what he does.
Right.
Like,
Dude
he's gonna come
shattered his
back and
elbow.
get pushed anyway.
Yeah, like that didn't look like it
Look
was
at
fun.
Big Show. Big Show is no reason being on my television, and he's still here strictly because he's 7 feet tall.
But I don't know. This was bad. I mean, it was Elias, who is supposed to be face, getting destroyed.
Yeah.
Then Finn Balor getting destroyed.
Because Baron changed the rules.
Raw has no babyface right now that I'm interested in.
Nope.
And it's because it's heat for 3 hours. That's all they want us to do. It's just like the heels are running the show.
SmackDown wasn't better either.
No, but like not like this whole like going back to this Nia Jax thing. Like, I hate it. Like, it's just so poorly written. She can't cut a promo. She's being rewarded for her inability to wrestle. And I just like the whole show, even the end. Like, you give me Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler for the 8,000th time this year.
I think it was actually the 15th time that
Like,
they
it's
wrestled
an
on
open
television.
challenge. Can you run Chad Gable out there or do something that I haven't seen? Like, come on.
Speaking of Chad Gable, man, what were they? What was their thought with I'm just so confused because if you look on paper at just the Survivor Series team on the Raw side, shouldn't that have been of enough warning side of like, hey, maybe we need to start pushing other people, because currently everybody on that roster, aside from the champions right now, are jobbers. You try to.
Don't call Bobby Roode a jobber.
I call it like I see it, Matt. Like, when's the last time he's won? It's bad. Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, I think, were supposed to be like the credible team on that Survivor Series team and going forward. And then just the way you treat them and the way you book them, there's no way to build a superstar. It's absolutely atrocious. They both need to just, I don't even know, because I don't know. Jason Jordan and Chad Gable need to be paired back together. I'm sorry, but that's the only time they've had success. And they're good. They work well together. Bobby Roode needs to turn heel. Which
Agreed.
I know they have a lot of heels right now, but he's a natural heel. It's like Randy Orton is a babyface. Like, what are you doing?
This program, right? I think we'd both agree that.
Yeah.
Rude's
Now,
going to turn on
this
Gable,
story
and
needs to be
Jordan's going to
told
make the
better.
save?
The story needs to be told better, and I think you can tell it better by having something happen at the Rumble. I also hate how.
Rude throw Gable over.
Yeah, speaking of the Rumble, I also hate how the mixed match challenge winner gets number 30.
Is that I
hadn't-
didn't
Yep, that's a thing now.
I heard that and I was like, what?
like the
that's-
man of it gets 30?
Like,
Oh,
I
I guess
watched the
both of
Rumble.
them.
And women.
I watched the Rumble because I'm like, wow, like they really have a chance to shock me with 30. And like, even if it is somebody who's a full timer, like, it's always interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
it gives away a.
Don't force me to care about mixed match challenge. Like, doesn't. It makes it worse. Like, I don't watch it. Like, I don't. Watch
No one
mixed match
watches
challenge,
it.
right? And like, 'cause
There's
Kurt
no
Hawkins
reason
is in it
to.
now, like, but I mean, can we talk about the match of the night on Raw?
There was a match of the night.
Yeah, big 6-star match. Jinder Mahal takes out No Way Jose. I mean, come on, like this was a big deal.
Dave Meltzer, where you at?
Yikes! All right. Anything else, Matt?
I mean, that's all I have to say. It was terrible.
One last thing about Survivor Series and how Raw doesn't have any stars and how Joe got eliminated super easily. We were sitting there texting one another before the match started, and I said, by God, if Shane McMahon is the last one, it'll be the second straight year where Shane McMahon is the last survivor for
Best in the
SmackDown.
world.
Best in the world. Shane McMahon has been the sole survivor and the last eliminated for SmackDown for the last 2 years. What is that telling you about what creative thinks about SmackDown? It's trash.
They don't know. I actually think the fact that they're making so much money is actually hurting them, because they're making so much money to spite themselves, and they know they literally can just throw garbage on a piece of paper and they will still make money off it because of the machine. And it's horrible. It's horrible for wrestling fans. And you know what? It's their own fault. And it's going to be the biggest downfall, and I'll tell you why right now. Because outside the WWE, the professional wrestling scene is the hottest it's been since the early 1990s.
Elite. Be the elite.
So, for those of you who don't know, there is professional wrestling outside of the WWE, and boy, is it firing on all cylinders right now. We got New Japan Pro Wrestling. We've got Ring of Honor. We've got Impact Wrestling, Lucha Underground, PWG. All of these promotions are doing fantastic work, and as of a couple weeks ago, it's looking like they're going to add another one. According to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, the terms All Elite Wrestling has been applied for a patent and a creative license, as well as some other things such as AEW, AEW Double or Nothing, AEW All Out, and this is all leading to the heavy speculation that Matt and Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks, which is the biggest independent wrestling tag team on the planet right now, along with their business partner, Cody Rhodes, who, son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, have come together to start their very own professional wrestling promotion. Now, this is coming off the heels of a wildly successful All-In event in September, in which 10,000-seat arena, the Civic Center in Chicago, was sold out for an independent wrestling show. A huge milestone in independent wrestling. The success of that has now given life to this potential new professional wrestling program. Matt, what are your thoughts on this potential new All Elite Wrestling?
I think these guys are really trying to make the next step and write the next chapter. These are in the Young Bucks and Cody, and I guess you could even put Kenny Omega in that group as well,
I agree.
as well as some of the other members of the Bullet Club, are really trying to make that next step. We saw the Parody Invasion, which has a ton of views on YouTube. I mean, that's a viral video.
Yeah, and granted, that was still about
Yeah.
over a year ago.
And it was done great. Like, that was kind of what opened the door, I think, for, like, WWE to have. I mean, obviously, they've always had the Young Bucks on their radar, and obviously Cody wrestled before, but I think that was, like, Vince McMahon saying, all right, these guys are coming for me. Like, they actually want to compete. And I think All Elite Wrestling could work because there's a lot of guys that are superstars within WWE that can get out of their contract and that are powerful enough to wrestle for this promotion.
The big dilemma, though, is that because of this, WWE has actually restricted their talent a lot more. So in the past, they would let their talent do these independent shows like Evolve, a couple other partners, Progress Wrestling, specifically in Britain. And they recently, this past week, came out and said that they are locking down their talent, essentially, where they are not going to let them compete in other promotions that are not already partnered with the WWE. For this very reason, because the WWE has this issue of they have so much talent and no idea what to do with any of them, that there are so many guys that are super talented that would thrive in All Elite Wrestling that are not doing anything in the WWE right now, and I think the WWE recognizes that, which brings me to my next thought, because I think if you look at people on the WWE main roster specifically that aren't doing anything, there are two names that stand out to me that deserve more: Shinsuke Nakamura and Asuka. Both of those people got huge pushes this past week on SmackDown, and I don't think it's a coincidence because it's the same week that All Elite Wrestling is beginning to form. Mm-hmm. Because they know that those are the two people that would benefit the most from this program. Right. So I'm excited for it. I think I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to compete with the WWE because I think the WWE is just too big and too much of a machine. I think it has a legit chance to rival NXT, though.
I don't know if it has I think it has the chance to. I don't know if it will. But I think, going back to Vince locking up his talent, I think Vince is scared enough. And I think that's all that the Young Bucks and Cody wanted to do. Mm-hmm. They want to perceive themselves as a true threat in this industry based off of one event. And, I mean, we've all heard the adage that Vince risked everything putting on WrestleMania. They're risking a lot by going in for this, all the trademarks, all the patent licenses, pushing talent to leave who they're currently working for to come to their promotion. But I think at the end of the day, because Vince decided to lock down his talent, they are perceived as a threat enough at this moment. And I think they can only go up from here because now they have one event under their belts. They went on for the entire weekend doing kind of like a WrestleMania Access type thing leading up to the event. So I think they could do it. I don't know if it'll rival NXT just because eventually NXT is going to have the sheer star power, but I think for the in-ring product, I think they could rival NXT.
Yeah, and I think in the past we've seen that Ring of Honor has had shows in the same city on the same night as NXT Takeovers traditionally before WrestleMania. So it's not a foreign concept to them to just go head-to-head with them. Mm-hmm. But now you put the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes behind it, who have already established themselves as capable of putting on major shows and booking well, and they're friends with all the other talented people in the industry that aren't currently signed with WWE. All the pieces are there. It's all about the execution. And it's also not like people don't know who the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes are because they're the number one merch seller, even including the WWE. If you go to any WWE show, you'll probably see at least 10 Bullet Club shirts.
Easily.
And that's how they're making their money right now. Like, that's, I mean, if you look at especially Matt and Nick Jackson, like, that's the largest part of their income. And, you know, Vince has been courting these guys. Triple H has been courting these guys for years, trying to get them to sign. And I thought they would cave eventually. And they wouldn't even be caving. I mean, I think that they could still exist within WWE and be elite. Mm-hmm. But they don't seem to think that way. They seem to think that starting their own promotion is the better route because now this is pretty much tells you right here that they have no interest.
Right.
So, I mean, because this is a big commitment.
Right, and I think this is the biggest sign to me that they really are not interested in working for the company anymore. Me and Ryan had talked you will always see these people leave the WWE, right? And I'm talking specifically about Cody Rhodes. You always see these people leave the WWE, but they always come back because WWE is the biggest. It's the biggest brand. It's the most amount of money. It's the biggest exposure. It's just there's not even a question whether you like the WWE or not. It's the standard of the industry, right? So how do you not come back to that? But with this move by Cody Rhodes, starting his own promotion, essentially to rival the WWE, that solidifies in my eyes that he's really not coming back. And granted, this could flounder, and then in 10 years, maybe he'll be back. But for the long term, there's no longer any possibility that I see Cody Rhodes on WWE television for at least 5 more years.
You know who's another interesting tag team that I think would be interested in this would be the Revival.
I agree. Revival
yeah.
is another one of those teams on the fringe.
It's the ties that obviously there's a running joke which we can't say on air, but I think that they came out and said they have 2, whether that was a tag team or 2 different superstars or what, 2 people that are basically signed a provisional contract to say I'm in on this if it happens. I wonder who that could be. I have a feeling that the Revival might be the first guys to get contacted.
It was someone already working for WWE?
Yeah. That's what they said. I don't know if that's trying to create urgency or trying to build, but you can't really say that. JR, Jim Ross, and Chris Jericho were also rumored to be tied to this thing. Now, that was a little overboard. Jim Ross said, I don't know what my role in it is. They kind of jumped the gun on that. Y2J also, I don't think really knows.
That's also another interesting point for me because it was up until this point, to me, it was very unclear as to what Chris Jericho's role with the WWE was. Because we saw Jericho worked the Saudi Arabia show, not this past one, but the Greatest Royal Rumble. He was there. He was the 30th entrant. That was the last time we've seen him on WWE television, which wasn't that long ago. It's under a year because it was in April. But since then, he's worked a lot of matches for New Japan Pro Wrestling, a couple matches for Ring of Honor. But now, with this coming up and Jericho essentially saying this is something he'd be interested in, it makes it almost sounds like he 100% has no more ties to the WWE. And I wonder if that has something to do with them offering him some sort of contract that was either not enough money or not offering him anything at all. And that was what spurred him, because for a long time, Jericho didn't want to work for another promotion inside of the United States, and that is since no longer the case.
I think the only devil's advocate that I will play here is that at the end of the day, Chris Jericho is still contracted by the WWE.
But see, I don't think he is.
I think he still absolutely is, because Vince is letting Chris Jericho run around and do all of this because he's Chris Jericho and because of the relationship that Vince and Chris have. I think if Chris Jericho expressed interest to go and do this with the Young Bucks and Cody, Vince would have no part in that. He would strike that down immediately because Chris Jericho is not Chris Jericho without Vince McMahon. Just based on how Vince has operated in the past. Like I said, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Just based on how Vince has acted in the past, I don't think Vince would let Chris Jericho go and do this. He's let Chris go and have his fun. Oh, yeah, you can go to New Japan. Go have fun in Ring of Honor. Go do your cruise ship thing with your family. But at the end of the day, you're my property. You are on my team. Never forget that. Never forget who brought you to this point in your career. But as for a question for you guys, who you said the Revival, who is another single superstar that you see going to this promotion?
It's tough to say. I don't know. Matt, do you have one?
Ooh. Prince Devitt. Ooh. If this continues to go the way it has for Finn, what is there left for?
Finn, I
would love that.
If they could get Finn, that is the equivalent in my eyes to WCW having Lex Luger appear on the first episode of Nitro.
Mm-hmm. WWE showing that he doesn't have any worth to them right now. He didn't get his shot ever when he got injured. He never got another chance at the Universal Championship. He's being destroyed on a Monday Night Raw where, he's getting beat up by guys like Bobby Lashley and Baron Corbin. What are we doing with Finn Balor here? This is a guy who was the leader of the strongest pro wrestling faction at the time, started it himself, and was one of the original members, and he gets injured, and just because he relinquishes his title, and this is how we treat him in 2 years, we do nothing with him. So I think he's a guy that would be possible. Now, who knows what his contract is, but I like the point you made, Ryan, about how I don't think Chris Jericho would be Chris Jericho either, because, I mean, look, Cody Rhodes always makes the jokes how he's trying to get his last name back, and like, he's Cody, because like that's his trademark in WWE, and like the way that ended on bad terms, like he can now go by Cody, and he always makes a joke like, I want to go get my last name back. So it's like, who knows anymore, but I think Finn is definitely an interesting one.
I don't know if Finn would do it. I think the intention is good, but I just think he's making too much money in WWE. You have to understand, going here from the WWE is a massive pay cut, no matter who you are. You know, so at some point you have to rival, you know, what's more important, the money for your family or the friendship, and so he's making a good paycheck at WWE, whether or not he's winning or losing, he's getting paid.
The one tough thing about this is I think that what WWE has the edge over right now is in the women's division. I think that they're doing a great job, and I think with TLC, with Charlotte, Asuka, and Ronda, is a great idea. I'm so glad they put Asuka in that match, and I know we're talking about Shinsuke and Asuka not really having anything recently, but I think this is a big opportunity for Asuka. I want her to get the belt here. I don't think she will, but I think she should.
I think this is their way of actually putting Asuka back into the main event picture for a WrestleMania match.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be a triple threat. I think she'll either take on I don't know, maybe it's Asuka versus Rousey, maybe not a WrestleMania, but maybe definitely somewhere down the line, Royal Rumble or something.
Yeah, because I think we get Becky and Ronda. I think that's still probably the main event.
So then
Well, not the
Asuka,
main
Charlotte
event, but
again. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I think Asuka obviously is underbooked.
Right. But anyway, other than that, a lot of other stuff going on in independent wrestling as well. One of the biggest signings this past week for the WWE was Germany-born professional wrestler Walter, one of the best professional wrestlers in the world. Exactly the kind of guy Vince McMahon likes: big, heavy, intimidating looking. But the rumor was that he is going to debut on NXT, but not the American version, but he will be the flag bearer of NXT UK. NXT UK has announced that in January they will hold their first takeover event. It'll be NXT UK Takeover Blackpool. And I'd imagine that is where the first time that we will see Mr. Walter appear. The reason for him going to the UK scene and not the regular NXT scene is because Walter has made it quite clear that he has no interest in living in the United States or doing a significant amount of time in the United States. He's from Germany. He wants to stay in Europe and work in Europe. So it makes both sense for both sides here, but that is the big rumor right now, is that he will be staying in the NXT UK brand.
Yeah, and I think we alluded to this before, but NXT is so loaded right now that it's probably good to have some guys on the UK. Is Tyler Bate still over there?
Tyler Bate is, he's one of him and Trent Seven or Mustache Mountain. He's one of the biggest tag team superstars on NXT UK.
And
he still does work occasionally for the NXT American version, but he's
Right.
primarily, from this point going forward, he's going to be almost exclusive to the UK brand.
Good.
So Pete Dunne is the champ?
Pete Dunne is the world champion, yes.
Okay.
So obviously he just had the match at TakeOver War Games, but I think his purpose in NXT, the United States version now, is just to get the exposure to the belt and to get more eyes on the UK brand.
And here's a take on November 28th. I think Pete Dunne's run is going to end when Walter debuts.
Interesting.
I think Walter's debut match at the TakeOver event will be against Pete Dunne for the title, and I think Pete Dunne will lose it to Walter.
Ooh, I agree with half of that. I don't think that his debut match will be for the title, but I think Pete Dunne will eventually drop the title to Walter.
I mean, if you wanna say that Walter is this big guy that everybody says he is, and especially you're having it in the UK, what is a better way to get your brand all over the place than have the guy's debut match be? It's kind of like what WCW did with the Big Show back in the day.
Right.
You put the belt on him in his first match and he wins it, and everybody starts going bananas. But I don't want to say Pete Dunne has wore off, but I think Pete Dunne for right now needs the story of trying to get his belt back.
Right, he needs something new.
He needs something new. He had the great feud with Tyler Bate, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So good. But I think Walter needs to win this belt from him, and then Pete Dunne has to chase it back, because
I agree.
what's better than a good title chase to start off a promotion?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I personally, for as good as the takeovers have been, I'm not that excited about TakeOver Blackpool. Mostly just because I'm not invested in any of the roster there yet. So,
And Pete Dunne as well. He took that belt and wrestled in a different promotion.
Oh yeah, yeah.
previously,
He goes
and
to
now-
Evolve and Progress, and he goes
Yeah.
all over.
And now you can't. Like as we were
Yeah.
talking about before, they restricted if you have a deal with Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, or World of Sport even.
Mm.
You can't wrestle against anyone with that kind of deal.
Yeah,
So,
and that's actually becoming, because of that, Impact Wrestling has actually pulled LAX out of a couple independent shows as well.
Okay.
So everyone is kind of on board. They're basically saying if WWE's not going to let their wrestlers wrestle us, then we're not going to let our wrestlers wrestle you guys. So
Here's one way to close
so the
show.
fans lose, honestly, in all of this.
Yeah. Let's close the show talking about something completely ridiculous.
'Kay.
Enzo Amore at Survivor Series.
Oh yeah,
Can we get what are our thoughts on that? I mean, I'll start with you,
he's an
Jason.
idiot. I don't get it. Like I'm not gonna. I don't like him. I don't like him as a character, as a person, as an in-ring talent. I think he's obnoxious. I think he's an attention hoe. I don't like him at all. He's awful.
I mean, I think he was hiding, right? He had a disguise. And
He had a really bad
Yeah.
wig and a hoodie, and that's it.
and he didn't last for long. I think his goal was probably to last a little bit longer than he did.
He achieved his goal.
Because he didn't get to the cruiserweight match.
No, but his goal was just to get people to notice him, and
Yeah.
and that happened.
Well, yeah.
He also dropped a rap album the day of, so it was all a promotional thing. It doesn't matter how long he was there for. The point is, people talked about it. People knew it happened. He got what he wanted.
Yeah. and
We're
he was-
talking about it, so he did it right.
Yeah, like I said, we'll end on something completely ridiculous. He was backstage. I know he was like he probably got charged with something.
He
some
got
kind of
banned from
trespassing.
the Staples Center for life.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this guy, Ryan?
It's so laughable. I saw the tweet and started freaking out and trying to look for him too. But I think the most disrespectful thing that Enzo Amore could have done was stand up during the show and try to hijack the show. And that's exactly what he tried to do. These are your former coworkers, probably former friends at some point, whether you were on the same show or not. They respected you and your work. Respect them and their work. I'm mad that security lady didn't just throw him in like a crossface or something and made him tap out right there. Like that would have been so much better than just yanking him off the chair. But he's a joke. Like you said, Jason, everything was promotional that he's doing. And the most ironic thing about Enzo Amore showing up was he said he would never go back to wrestling. He said wrestling was done in his life and he would never go back to it. And where's the next place he starts making news again? At a wrestling show because he decided to be a jerk and stand up during a match.
Yeah.
Well, you can't teach that.
Nope. And with that, that's going to end our episode of Marking Out this week. Next week, we have our final episode of Marking Out for this semester. It'll be my final episode of Marking Out of all time as I graduate. But it has been a fun...
One more match.
Thanks, guys. It's been a fun run. Make sure you tune in to our final episode next week on Marking Out. Take care, everybody, and bye-bye.